Today, we are not talking about chasing the hottest markets. We're not guessing where appreciation might happen, not buying deals just hoping that they work out. We're talking about buying with a plan because the investors who survive every market cycle, they don't rely on luck. They rely on data, discipline, and buying right. My guest today is Karl Spielvogel, and Karl has spent years studying housing data, tracking marketing cycles, and helping investors understand where the real opportunities actually are, not just where the headlines say they are. So in this episode, let's break down what the numbers are really saying about today's housing market and why some markets are slowing while others are still growing. The biggest mistakes that investors make when they analyze deals, and most importantly, how to make smarter decisions in an uncertain market. So if you're trying to invest right now and you're wondering, where are the real opportunities? Or how to avoid buying a property that looks good today, but hurts you tomorrow. This conversation matters, and make sure you pay attention. So welcome to the Closers Club, the place where real investors come to learn the tips, the tricks, and the tactics that real people are actually using to crush it in this business, and how to implement it in your business right now today. All right, so let's get right into it. Karl, thank you so much for coming on. Also, I want to say your last name, but I can never get it right. So tell people how to say it.
It's Karl Spielvogel. So,
Yeah,
or just call me Uncle Carl. That's
Uncle
what everyone calls
Karl.
it. Yeah.
Well, I always say like, hey, I've got this great buddy. He's in Charlotte. I've been to his office. He's also got the greatest phone number ever, but I can never get his last name right. But you are like super famous for all of these like crazy and wild and just off the wall deals where I don't know. I mean, petitions of title and just messy title issues. Like, how did you get into this side of the business?
Well, we just started we're doing a lot of normal, everyday what investors do, and then we kept running into these problems.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, like one attorney says, you can't close because you got all these judgment, you have to pay them off. Well, we learned that we can buy a judgment, discount a judgment, let it expire and fight it. So what happens is like a lot of our learning came from problems. Like, does that make sense? Like
Sure.
attorney said you can't do this or there's a problem. So what was the question again? Sorry.
How did you get into I get it. How'd you get into all of this?
Well, just doing the regular type deals, and then we kept seeing these problems like where somebody's dead, and we're like, well, what do we do? And the attorney says, well, you have to check for an estate. You got to build up family trees. Well, I'm like, how do we do this? Well, you hire a genealogist. Well, so we just learned by running into different problems, and that's and when we saw that there was a lot of money in solving these issues, and we're also helping these heirs or people that couldn't solve these problems who wouldn't get any money get money. So that's how we got into this, and it started a lot with the property tax delinquents. That's our number one source for these kind of deals.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
So you just start out looking for people who 2, 3 years, 4 years behind, whatever. Are you mainly working in Charlotte, or are you working in other areas?
We're best in North Carolina, but we do deals all over the country. But we really understand the laws, the loopholes, and have the attorneys and have the outside the box thinking to get it done. But we're mainly North Carolina. That's our best. Yeah.
So you start out doing investing, and I tell stories all the time. I had this attorney, and this was at the investor-friendly title company, but we called him Dr. No, because it was always this, right? No, I can't close it. Davey, it's in bankruptcy, it's foreclosure, probate, liens, whatever, right? All of that stuff. And I think a lot of investors walk away from those because they don't have the expertise and they don't want to be bothered. And I know for us, some of our TCs take a deal and it closes 5, 6, 7, 8 months later, and I'm like, I would have let that thing go, right? Because I just wanted to move on to the next thing that was going to get me paid quicker. So, what were some of those really early deals where you're like, wait a second, I think I can figure this out, maybe? Like, how did that work?
It started out with I think it was like we had this one on sorry. Okay, turn my phone. We had this property on, it was a tax delinquent. So we started getting the tax delinquent, and the owner was deceased. So we ended up building the family tree. There was 2 heirs, and we basically just tracked them down, made a deal with them to buy out their shares, and we made 68,000 on that deal. So we're
Mhm.
like, hey, this is good stuff. We need to look more into dead people. So we love dead people that own houses. Those are the
Yeah.
best deals. Is when they dead people that own houses uh, or land. We do a lot of land deals. So
Mhm.
that we got
Okay.
into that one, and then were like, wow, this is good money. So we just started working all the property tax delinquents and finding out there's everywhere from judgments to you can buy out partial interests. You
Mhm.
can do partition sales. You can let it
Okay.
go to tax sale with a and collect excess proceeds. Like, there's so many different ways to skin a cat in
Yeah.
this distressed asset field.
So talk about what'd you say? Partial
Partial
interests and
interests.
okay.
Oh, I can talk for hours, but
Because
I'll do a
yeah,
quick one on this. So
yeah, like literally somebody yesterday was like, "Hey, I can get one." I was in a group I'm in,
yeah,
and he was like, "Yeah, I can buy one person's interest and can I wholesale it?" And my answer was like, maybe depends how much the
yeah,
interest is. You could do it and buy it yourself, but I would think it would be hard to wholesale, but maybe people do it.
yeah. Typically, like, so if there's like a partial interest, we'll talk to everybody. We always
Mhm.
tell the people, go get with the rest of the, like, these are, if they know all the heirs, go get with them. We can pay you a lot more money,
Right.
right? So we want them all together. And then if
Sure.
not, we can buy out their share, and typically it's pennies on the dollar. So let's just
Right.
say you bought out half an interest in a property. Now you have multiple exit strategies. Like, you can file a partition sale, or you can even go back to the other heirs and say, hey, I own, like, sometimes you'll buy out a brother who hates a sister. This
Yeah.
happens all
Yeah.
the time. So you buy out the sister's stuff, and now that you own this share, you can go back to the brother and he'll deal with you, right?
Right. Because he
Or
doesn't have that animosity.
it doesn't have animosity. So typically, like, well, once we buy out a share, we always continue to work on the others. If we can't get them, then we can file a partition sale, which
Okay.
forces the whole property to sell at the courthouse. And if it goes for low, you buy it because you already own half of it. If it goes for high, you let it go and you collect the excess proceeds on your share. So that's what's really
Oh.
cool about the partition sales.
So a petition sale isn't like the court forces them to sell to you. It just goes to like an auction.
It goes to auction. I guess in lieu of partition, because typically partitions were land where one person would get half and the other would get the other half, right? But you can't saw a house in half. So
Mm.
they do this partition. I think it's called lieu of partition, and they in North Carolina they take them to the courthouse and sell them.
Mhm.
So and real quick, one of the things we tell people once we own half of it, we'll say, look, we're going to file a partition sale. You're going to have to come to court. You may have to hire an attorney, then a judgment will be granted for the sale of the property. So you can do that, or you can work with us. So
Do they
that,
can they stop it? Can they say, "I don't want this to sell," and just dig
yeah,
in?
I got one in Atlanta that's going on almost 2 years. So there can be some problems with those
Right.
where they
So
fight.
there is some risk, right? So you wanna
There's
know what
risk.
you're doing. Right.
Yeah. But that's
Okay.
that. And here, there's so many different ways of partial interest. Let's say, like, we did this other deal. We bought out 90% of it. We couldn't get the
Mhm.
last holdout. So we let it go through the tax sale and we collected overages. So we made about $120,000 on that property. So, like, if you don't get everybody, another exit strategy is let it go through the tax sale. A lot of these are delinquent, or let
Mhm.
it go through the mortgage sale and you get to collect the excess. So
Okay.
there's so many different ways that you can structure these kind of deals. And I could go on and on about partitions and that,
Yeah.
but
I
but
love it because I don't know a lot about this, and I know Logan talks about it some too,
yeah.
but let's just say on this 90% deal, like, roughly what did you buy 90% for? And then how did it work? Like, what did it sell for, and how did you collect the over? Just so people can
I,
kinda case
I
study that
think we
number
were
down.
into it for like 40 something thousand, and it
Okay.
sold for, I think, 190 at the
Wow.
sale.
That's
And after expenses, everything, that's the one we made about $120,000.
wow.
So we
Wow.
just bought out all the heirs. We couldn't get the last one, so we let it
Yeah.
go through the sale.
So did that guy or gal, whoever that owned the 10%, did they get anything?
Yeah, they got their 10% of the 190 minus expenses. They probably got 15 grand. So they
Which
end
they
up
would have
getting,
got probably would have got more from you.
yeah, because they were the last holdout. You always pay the last holdout more to get the
Mm,
deal. So
right.
hey, if you ever come up against me and you're the last person, you're going to get more money because you are the one person that needs to get the deal done.
Right, right. Well, we've all seen those things where it's like there's a shopping mall around, and then there's this one little house, right? Like the house
Yeah.
from Up, where just they absolutely refuse to close. So, what have been, of all the types of deal, what have been the most profitable deals?
The most profitable have been land
Hmm.
owned by dead people that we can subdivide or has a value add. And
Okay.
like there's this property we bought on Torrance, and it was a property that we knew we could subdivide into multiple lots. It
Hmm.
also had $100,000 hospital judgment and had multiple heirs. So what we did is we searched down the heirs. One was in Jamaica. It took us a while. So we bought the property. I think we're all in for like 13,000,
Wow.
and we kept it for 4 years. So we also got the appreciation, and we ended up netting. And then we subdivided it into 13 lots. We sold 7 of them off. We still have these other lots are not really buildable. So we sold them off to a builder. And once he builds, we're going to try to sell those to the owners of the homes for really small amounts,
Yeah. So, what
make an
did you do
extra
with
10.
like the hospital lien and all that stuff?
Oh, we just waited it off. Judgments are typically good for 10 years,
Uh huh.
and a lot of hospitals won't renew them. But we'd also place it into a land trust. So what would happen? Now, technically, they can foreclose, but I've never seen a hospital do that. So we
Right.
just waited till that lien expired, and
Hmm.
then after that, we were able to clear the title.
Wow. Now, what about like IRS liens or like we have
Yes.
Tennessee Medicare, TennCare? You probably have something similar in North Carolina.
Yeah. So two things with IRS liens. There's a property on, I think 40 is on Strangford Drive. Foreclosure, we bought it with like $200,000 worth of IRS liens. And then we put it into a land trust. And then we just waited for the IRS liens to expire.
Oh, they
So,
expire? I thought they
yeah,
were forever.
but IRS liens are typically 10 years. There's some that are 20, but double check that. So we've done a lot of deals. We'll buy stuff with IRS liens and then we'll just let them expire.
Hmm.
I've never seen them foreclose. I'm not saying they won't.
Yeah.
So on that deal, we made $147,000. And what was really cool is my partner, Mitch, we bought it in his IRA for 73,000. So all
Yeah.
the profits go back in the IRA tax free.
Mm,
So
that's
that was
cool.
really cool. So it
Yeah.
was just basically looking at the IRS judgments, buying it subject to. We rented it out for cheap for like 4 years. They expired, and then we sold the property. So
Hmm.
we've done a lot of stuff with IRS judgments on
Yeah.
them.
Really? So, and I've bought properties from the tax sale or that had been sold in the tax sale. And, they don't technically have clear title, but they make really great rentals. A lot of
Yeah,
times, if you're willing to just ride it out until, it's been 7 years or 10 years and you get title insurance or these liens drop off, those are great properties to buy and hold, right? Because you
yep,
should be getting them cheap. And this is something we talk about all the time, right? The more risk you're taking, the lower the price has to be.
yes.
Yeah. That seems to be incredibly important. So, I know people would you say this is a beginner strategy or an expert strategy? Like, is
It
this
it
something
it
where new people should start?
well, it's an expert strategy, but
Mhm,
you can learn the basics by going to
mhm,
YouTube, following
yeah,
me. There's other people out there that do this.
mhm,
Um, so I think with a little bit of knowledge, you can do this,
yeah,
right? You need a good attorney, a little bit of knowledge, and then maybe joint venture with me or somebody else in the
right,
beginning
right,
to learn the stuff. But
mhm,
a majority of what we do is not super hard. And if you can learn the basics of it, that you can do this yourself.
mhm, mhm. So, then that's kinda where I was going, right? Is this more
Yeah,
beginner or for people who are looking for quick checks, right? Because I always explain, when I have
yeah.
students or clients or partners, whatever it is, I'll say, well, tell me this. Do you need money today, money in 6 months, or money in 6 years? Right? Which, where does this strategy
Yeah.
fall in that time frame?
We have some deals that close in 1 to 3 months, but a
Oh.
majority of our deals, and those are usually maybe there's 1 or 2 heirs, maybe there's a judgment, and they're
Hmm.
simpler deals. But most of our deals take 6 months to a year before we
Hmm.
monetize them. So this can be yeah, it's not like this is not the fast, quick wholesale, but
Wholesale,
there's
right?
not as much competition in this arena. There's not as many
Love it.
people willing to build the trees out and buy 13 heirs out or
Mhm.
file quiet titles and
Mhm.
color
Mhm.
of title, all this stuff.
What
So
is color of title? I heard you mention that earlier.
I don't totally understand, but my attorney does. Okay. So, like, for example, we bought this one property. It's like in a land trust, and we were able to, and the owner died, but long story, we were able to get the father of the trust to sign it over to us. And because they had gotten title for 8 years, even though the title was all jacked up, we can file a color of title, and we had to serve all the past heirs and some of the ones that were missing, and we were granted title insurance on it. So again, I
Wow.
can't totally explain it, but it's part of a quiet title adverse possession. But the
Okay.
main thing is I got a good attorney, so I just take it to them,
Right.
and they're the ones that say, yes, we can do this, or how can we do this. So I think that's, yeah, so that's color of title. So anyways, that we bought 4 lots for 7,000. I think we got them sold off for around 170,
Wow.
on the color of title.
Right. Wow. So, I guess kind of where I was going with all that is for
Yeah.
people who are watching. If you are wholesaling, right? Our job in wholesaling is we want to throw out the biggest net we can. We're going to pull in a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. And of course, in wholesaling, we're going for the crazy stuff, right? The death,
Yeah.
divorce, probate, bad tenant, late on the water bill, whatever it is. Well, you're going to get some of these wacky deals in there, right?
Yes.
So, instead of maybe just throwing those away or just telling, hey, Mrs. Smith, there's nothing I can do for you here, is this the kind of stuff maybe they could reach out to you and
Yes.
see, like, hey, is this something you can help me with? We could partner. I could get a referral fee. Like, how can
Yeah.
people monetize these deals? And even beyond monetizing is how do we help people?
Well, the one thing is, I would say, yeah, we can help people on a lot of these kind of deals.
Mhm.
We're open to joint venture, referral, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and sorry, what's the question again?
How when people are getting these kind of wacky deals
Oh,
in, right? Instead of just throwing them away.
yeah. One thing would be reaching out to us. There's also other people in the industry that do this, and then reaching out to your attorney. So you can reach some of these attorneys can help you through these things. So instead of giving up, now you,
Mhm.
you can't get Billy Bob Joe attorney that's just
Right.
just the normal stuff. And or one thing is they can go to you guys because you guys are really good at clearing a lot of these problems. You
We're
know,
good at the basics, like, but,
yeah,
I think for sure, and that's why we were talking, I'd love to have you come in and talk to our coordinators. When it starts to
yes,
get into really weird and wacky where attorneys need to be involved and somebody's gonna have to put up some money, right?
yeah,
Like, and that's, I think, usually where most wholesalers and investors, they're like, I don't know that I want to risk 5 grand or 10 grand or 7 grand on this. Um, where maybe they can come to somebody like you and say, hey,
yeah,
what do you think? Is this something we could do? You know, how could we work together?
yeah.
How can we help this person?
Yeah, a lot of it, like if you just reach out to me, then we have a submittal portal that you can submit the
Mm,
information. Then we take a look at it, set up a call with you to see how we can work it together, or maybe
yeah,
just even give you some advice to get it done, or
right,
just talk the deal through.
right. So, and there are lots of deals out there, right? Like, there's no shortage of these things.
Yeah, we probably have at least 30 to 40,000 tax delinquents that were working in some form or fashion.
Mhm,
We have a top like 400. So yeah, these property tax delinquents are probably the best source.
mhm,
Also, if you go to meetups, there's always investors that have these kind of deals,
mhm.
title companies that have some kind of these deals that
Yeah.
that too messed up. And that's a lot of ways you can find these type
Mhm.
deals.
Wow. So, and what's the best way for people that if they wanted to reach out to you, how could they do that?
One thing is, we have our office number is
Mhm.
704-777-7777.
That's the
ca
best number ever.
Yeah, call and leave a message. Real
Mhm.
quick, I bought that number for $250 about 20 years ago. I
Yeah.
just called the guy up
Mhm.
and I said, "Hey, I wanna buy your," well, actually, I was really drunk. I don't drink anymore. I said, "I wanna buy your phone number." And the
Yeah.
guy was like, "What? You're drunk?" I said, "Yes, I am, but I wanna buy your phone number."
Yeah.
And so he sold it to me for maybe it's $350. The reason he sold it, people think it's taxi cabs, it rings all the
Right.
time.
Right.
So I had an offer for 110,000 from an attorney, a personal injury attorney, to buy that phone number
Wow.
while I'm
Flipping
selling it.
phone numbers. That's
Oh, there's a whole
absolutely wild.
business in doing that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, and I know, you were telling me earlier before we jumped on here, just how many deals that you've got. And, if people wanted to just like invest with you, is that something that they can do? Like, just like, hey,
Yeah.
Carl, let me just give you some money. You go do these deals. I know it might take a year or two or whatever, but I would imagine returns are good and it's really good business to be partnered in.
Yeah. It's really good because the returns are high.
Hmm.
Um, I'll give you my phone number because yeah, we do. One of the
Okay.
things we have more deals than we have money for because these
Right.
deals you put the money in, you get paid a year or whatever. So
Right.
we can always use more funds. We'll joint
Hmm.
venture, just partner or whatever on these deals. I'll
Hmm.
give you my personal number. Go
Okay.
ahead and text me. It's 704 995
Hmm.
5385.
Okay.
It's best to text me, but
Yeah,
yeah,
guys,
there's
do not call. Like, he's like me, he's busy. Like, you see that board behind him, he's got a lot of stuff going on. So please always be respectful of. I always ask people if they're really sure they want to give out their personal
yes,
number, but please just if you're gonna, reach out, just do it as a
t
text and
text.
be
Yeah,
respectful. Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
And what I love about this business is there's so many different ways to profit.
Mhm.
We talked a little bit about, like, judgments. Like,
Yeah.
I'll tell you one last deal, okay? Is that cool? I just
Yeah, I
love
love it.
talking deals because
I love it,
that's how I
man.
learn. I've
Yeah.
learned from people. So we had this deal, a defunct corporation, tax delinquent. The guy was in jail, okay? So we basically reached out to them and they said they've tried to sell it before, but there was problems. So we ran title. They had a $73,000 judgment to Home Depot, a $63,000 judgment to Ford Motor Credit. So we basically made a deal. We paid them $15,000. Now we got title insurance subject to the
Right.
taxes and the two judgments. Then what we did is we approached Home Depot and uh, we bought that judgment for $16,000.
Okay.
Now, this is important. The reason we bought the judgment is it like taxes are first, then HD Supply got clocked next, and Ford Motor Credit's in third position. We didn't want to satisfy it because it keeps Ford Motor Credit further back. So we bought that, and then we got Ford Motor Credit down to 22,000, and then we sold the property and we made $143,000 on that.
So even if you had a yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
we only
pretty
invested
good.
15,000 and we also could have waited 2.5 more years and those
Mhm.
judgments would have expired.
Right.
And we
And were
could
you
have
able
done
to
that.
pay the judgments at closing? So you didn't even have to pay them?
Well, no, we bought the one thing. So on this, that's ideal, right? You want to pay them
Mhm.
at closing, but we got such a good deal. We just bought the one for 16,
Mhm.
and then we got the other one down to 22,000. So we had to
Yeah.
pay those. But
Yeah.
that's a great thing. Sometimes you can negotiate where they get paid out at closing.
Right, if you've
So,
already got a buyer. And honestly, you probably paid them more than some credit collection company would have paid them. So they
yep,
probably did better. I love
yeah,
it. Carl, thank you so much for coming on.
sure,
I'd love to have you come back and like we could do a deep dive into like, suits for quiet title or memorandums or, some of these things
yeah,
that are ultra technical where we can just talk about that for 20 minutes because I do think there's man, I get it. Everybody's on YouTube, and this will be on YouTube as well.
yeah,
But there's sometimes just a lack of very specific knowledge from people like you in the industry, or absolutely, the thought leaders and the people who are really doing the business. So I
yeah,
appreciate you coming on. I'd love to
sure.
have you come back.